Welcome back to Connected Teamwork Summit and Team Defining Moment 1, Appreciation and Play, with my co-host and friend, Carson Heady. Carson, how are you today?
Hilke, being with you is always a treat. Thanks for having me.
It's amazing to see you. I always love being with you in the same room, even though you and I have never met in person. We've done so much together over the last two years. And as I introduce you, I just want to say how much I appreciate you and your leadership in this. We met a couple of years ago when I was doing some work with Carson's team at Microsoft, and Carson just jumped out of the woodwork and said, "Listen, I want to help." And I was like, "Wow, he wants to help." And that is, to me, a core ingredient of what Carson is about. A core ingredient of what he's about. He's a person that I know is very generous, very kind, and very purposeful. He's doing so much. So let me tell you a little bit about Carson. He is a student of sales, and his passion is helping others succeed to achieve their goals. He works at Microsoft. He's there recognized as the #1 social seller, working on creating relationships, enabling customers with optimizing Microsoft agreements, licensing, and cloud solutions. You've been working on global training for sales professionals. You've gotten lots and lots of awards, like the Platinum Club, the Gold Club, etc. You're the strategic advisor to multiple companies. You've written 4 best-selling books. You're on multiple podcasts, including Social Selling for Newbies, which is one of the top podcasts in the country or in the world, I think. And also, you are my co-host in Connected Teamwork. You create the LinkedIn Career Advice Network. And whenever I meet you, Carson, there's always this sense of palpable energy, which is extraordinary. So thank you for being here today, Carson.
Thank you. I appreciate you more than you know, Hilke.
Oh, thank you for that. Anything before we go and talk about the specific team-defining moment you're going to talk about, appreciation and play? Anything you want to say by way of kicking off the summit?
There's a great, parlay into this subject, because I think one of the things we're really exploring today is why connectedness is so important, specifically in teams. And a lot of this starts with ourselves and understanding the importance of being connected to our purpose, but then also being able to help empower and enable others to find that connectedness, creating that culture. And one of the greatest ways to do that is by showing appreciation and infusing elements of play into your day-to-day. So really excited to dive into that topic with you today, Hilke.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So first question, tell us about connectedness and appreciation and play. Tell us about appreciation and play, and what have you learned about that particular team defining moment? You worked with so many teams. How do you develop connectedness in that?
I've been very fortunate, as you mentioned, to work with a lot of different teams along my journey, and especially working for some very motivational leaders. And I think it all starts with recognizing the importance of connectedness and teamwork in achieving your goals and the goals of your organization. You know, a team that is connected and that has a relationship that is built with a foundation of trust and transparency and collaboration is going to be the most successful team. There's always going to be things that may try to shake us, and I think all of us as leaders at some point have had that inkling to have a knee-jerk reaction or to do something perhaps that leans into the negative. But over time, it's very important that we as leaders understand that sometimes our most important role is creation of that culture, nurturing that culture, and also keeping a steady hand on the wheel during challenging times. The reason that appreciation and celebration and play are so important is because often these can be catalysts for performance and for creation of this culture. I think it's really incredible when you think about it. It takes just a moment to recognize your appreciation for someone. Even just this week, I've sent multiple notes of appreciation to people for things that they've done to go above and beyond the call of duty. I've copied in their leader and their skip level in some cases to let them know how much I appreciated them. It was Maya Angelou that once said that people are going to, at the end of the day, people are not going to remember what you said or did necessarily, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I believe that's extremely important, especially as we're looking as leaders to create that culture of connectedness. The last thing I would say, as far as incorporating even play into work, I always think of Mary Poppins. I've seen it many, many times and now watched it with my children. And for every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. And if you find the fun, the job's a game. And if you look at the ways we spend so much of our time working, and sometimes we spend more time with the people that we work with and for than our spouse, than our kids, unfortunately, sometimes, right? So finding the way to inject fun into what you do, finding ways to enjoy the time that you have together and to get to know each other on a more personal level. I can't tell you how important it is to make deposits into those relationships that are positive. I can tell you all of the fun times that I've spent time with my past teams in escape rooms or doing different games where we were asking questions and we were getting to know each other on a personal level. Those are the types of relationships that transcend results. Because at the end of the day, results are all about people following the right process.
Beautiful. I love Mary Poppins. Then work becomes play. And yeah, we're here for so much time. So much time. I want to dive a little bit into the disconnection part of this. So think about what happens and what has happened in your life and leadership of teams and of yourself when you are not appreciating yourself, when you're not appreciating yourself. Like, what happens instead, and how do you get yourself and others out of that zone?
So the disconnection is very easy to happen. I want to make that very clear because I think it's happened to all of us at some point in time, and it's incumbent upon us as leaders to identify when it happens and why. The disconnect can often happen when we don't meet our team where they need to be met, or we don't understand their why or their purpose, or we don't understand what truly matters to them. One of the foundational things that I do when I start working with a new team is I'll survey them, and I use that time to really understand roles that they may want to play in the team and in the broader organization. Some of them really enjoy like celebrating birthdays or doing different things around recognition. I always encourage my team to meet without me, have players only conversations, and then have someone be a spokesperson that can tell me some of the things that might have come out of that, that would be tangible things that I can sink my teeth into and help make better. If there's issues that I can remediate. Furthermore, a lot of times disconnection happens when we get caught up in the day to day. We all get pulled in so many different directions. It's very easy to get swept up in sometimes minutia, sometimes administrative tasks. And sometimes in the challenges that befall the organization or changes. I've worked in environments before where leadership critiques or micromanagement often overshadowed the achievements that were happening. But it takes just a moment to
Mm,
recognize someone. It takes
mm,
just a
mm,
moment to send a note of thanks or
mm,
appreciation.
mm,
Why do we wait sometimes for awards to be announced? Why not create our own awards? Some of
mm,
the best things that my team and I have ever done is, we created our own set of awards at the end of a fiscal year or at the end of a quarter. Some of them were even silly, things to get people to laugh about and to really just get everybody involved and engaged. And even in the most challenging of circumstances, you can find something very positive. And I want to share a personal story.
mhm,
I had someone on one of my other podcasts last year, Anthony Iannarino, a great sales author, and he shared with me this exercise that he did. It was a 2-week gratitude journey, and so basically, it was a gratitude journaling experience that he did. And statistically speaking, the effects of doing this challenge, this exercise, is proven to be better for your well-being than any stimulant. And here's why. So basically, over a period of 2 weeks, and you can go longer, you write down 3 things every single day. You can write more that happened that were good. And then, very importantly, why they happened. I found myself, when I look back on this adventure, the worst days that I had the most positive things written. And the most powerful thing that spoke to me, Hilko, was that the reasons why these things happened, in some cases, they were things that I had planted the seed for years ago. You see, you're given an opportunity every day to invest in relationships, invest in yourself, and even just make the choice to err on the side of the positive or the optimal or the appreciation. That's the decision that you're going to have to make time and time again in order to eradicate that disconnect.
I love that. I love that. That real sense of I hear choicefulness in that. Like I hear choicefulness. How do you make that choice? How do you make that choice to, as a leader, to step out of maybe where you don't want to be, that,
Yeah.
and how do you step into that? How do you make that choice?
You have to want it, and it has to be core to who you are and what you believe. See, I realized long ago as a leader, it's not about me.
Mhm.
And I wish I had realized that sooner. In my 20s, like many, I was very ego driven, and how high can I go? How far up the corporate ladder can I climb? Because that was the pressure that I felt was on me. But as I've aged and gotten a little bit more experience, I've realized we're not meant to be the hero. We're the hero makers. We exist to go out and find people that we can put into positions to win. If you help elevate everyone around you and you help everyone around you win, guess what? You're going to win too. And that is all the more fulfilling when you can take all these people on the journey with you. I'll tell you another personal story, and this reminds me of years ago. I was working in a call center, and we made very conscious decisions about how we worked different markets. We had a charter. We had 800 different campaigns that we had to run per year. And it was up to my team and I to kind of time them throughout the month and throughout the year. We were having a really tough month. We would really typically call on our really lucrative leads mid-month. And we were having a really challenging month. And I remember there were a few days where I was erring on the side of negative. I was pointing out, hey, we're not doing well here. This isn't good enough. Or team, I expect more. But I will tell you that what turned us around was when I decided to put my steady hand back on the wheel, recalibrated as a leader, realized that we were all people. We wanted to be successful. I believed that. This was a team we built. We put these people in a position because they earn the right to be in that position. It's not up to us as leaders to tell them how to do the job. It's up to us to make sure that they have the support and the structure and the tools to be successful. And we just turned it around. I literally that day was prancing around the office with a jukebox or a jam box playing "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey, and we were celebrating. We were talking about all the people in our morning stand up that were doing well up to that point, and cheering and clapping and hearing from them on why. And we got a standing ovation that morning. We had the best day of the month, and we weren't even calling on the best leads yet. My point is, starts with you as a leader. You have to make the conscious decision to create that environment, that atmosphere of celebration and play. Once you make that conscious decision, execute that. And even when it doesn't work exactly the way you want, it doesn't mean you go back to that comfortable way of mediocrity that wasn't working. It means that you embrace it, you tweak it, you make sure you bring others on the journey with you. That's what ensures success. That's what continues to invest in the culture that you seek.
I want to know, Carson, the culture you seek. I like how you're talking about this in a group setting, like how you're creating that in a group setting and how you're really helping to make that come alive. And I'm curious, how do you do that with yourself? How do you create an atmosphere of appreciation with yourself? Because it's so easy to lose that. Like it's so easy to lose that.
That's a good question. And at the end of the day, Hilka, it comes back to what is fueling you? What is your purpose? And as hard as it can be sometimes, you have to recenter yourself and you have to go back to your why and to your purpose. I've had a lot of, I would say, very challenging setbacks in my life and in my career. And there have absolutely been times where, hey, I'm tired. Is this worth everything that I'm throwing into it? Is this going to have the outcome that I want? But I will tell you that if you invest in yourself, your learning, your growth, and it's not even just about positivity, it's just about being the optimal version of yourself, looking for the people that you need or would want relationships with, looking for the knowledge or the learning that is out there that you want that perhaps you don't have. Those are the types of things that ultimately will fuel you. Now, I think everybody comes to the table with their own set of different motivations, different why. Some people are very money motivated, some are career focused, some want to feed their families, some want to leave a legacy. And I think at the end of the day, like, I know my motivations have changed a lot over the years. All of us will change considerably over the years. But as you said, it starts with self and understanding that importance of being connected to what matters truly to me. I realized a long time ago that, especially as a sales professional, as a leader, I never wanted a number next to my name that wasn't indicative of my absolute best. Even if that meant that I failed, even if that meant that I went down swinging and fell up short, I wanted to at least be able to look back on the sum of the parts, my body of work, and say, hey, that was the best I could have done. And I can live with that. And that's what I always tell people, sellers, career professionals. If you can look back on what you did in a day, month, quarter, year, and you know that you did your best, you can live with that. And I know personally that I'm very proud of what I've done. I've always left it all on the field. Some days, some months, some years didn't look the way that I wanted, but that's okay because I did the best I could. I learned from it and I take that forward. That's how you take your snowball and turn it into an avalanche because you continue to gain momentum, experiences, relationships, knowledge. Those are the things that will propel you forward. And there's nothing that will ever stop me from wanting to learn and serve more.
There's nothing that will stop me from wanting to learn and serve more. And I hear a deep appreciation in you, Carson, for your potential and the potential of others. We're going to take a short break in a moment, and then we'll come back to this question. How can we use appreciation and play as an intentional way to create connectedness in teams? See you after the break. So, welcome back. We are talking with Carson Heady, who is the number one actually social seller, not the number two, the number one social seller at Microsoft, and an amazing speaker, co-host of this summit, and also of the Connected Teamwork podcast, and many other things. We've been talking about appreciation and play, and Carson, I want to ask you, when things don't go well, when things don't go well for yourself or for your team, what do you do?
First off, you have to set the foundation for this before they don't go well. I get asked a lot of times by sales professionals, well, how do I overcome this objection? How do I overcome that objection? A lot of times it starts long before the point you're in. First, you have to set up the infrastructure for connectedness. A lot of this nowadays, we're, as you mentioned, Hilke, we've known each other for years, but we've never met in person. But I feel like I can very much be myself with you. Now, why is that? It's because I feel like I understand your purpose and what drives you. I've read your book, and furthermore, we've spent a lot of time talking and being ourselves with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about the ability that you have to do that with your team. As I mentioned, I'll survey my team when I first start working with a new team, and I understand where they want to be met. How often do they want to meet? What I always want to make sure that they know that they're not starting over. If there was something that they had in the works, some momentum towards something like a promotion or another role or another opportunity, I always want to make sure you're not starting over. I want to know all those things out of the gate. I start a file on every one of my folks. And at the very top, I always put, their family members, whatever they want to tell me about themselves personally, and then what they put in that survey. And I put that at their top of their file. That way I can always revert to that every time we have a one-on-one. I can ask about Susie. I can ask about the promotion and the progress that we're making toward that, so that those types of things are top of mind. By doing this has created fertile ground for connectedness, so that when things go wrong, we're plugged in. We're plugged in with each other, right? Furthermore, I'll set up. It's amazing. A lot of us have made these shifts over the last decade of doing a lot more remote work. I first had a remote team back in the relatively early 2000s. I had some offices that were remote, and I would travel to them, but a lot of our connection was on telephone calls or via email and instant messenger. Now, the ability to have these video calls or team chats where you can connect and call out people and recognize people in broad forums, that there's a lot of power in that. Furthermore, I will solicit my entire broader team, all 40 plus people that touch my territory, my team's territory, every week in advance of a team meeting. So I can stay at the pulse of what matters to that team. Now, the reason I say all that, Hilke, is because when something goes awry or amiss, we're already so plugged in with each other that communication is very easy. Being approachable as a leader, giving your team the opportunity to come to you and express things. The last thing I would say on that note is do not be reactionary. And also don't assume that you know all the answers. Don't feel pressure to make a knee-jerk reaction to make an answer. Because I've had scenarios where different people that worked for me had a difference of opinion. And you're going to hear the vantage point from this person. You definitely can't weigh in or go into with some preconceived notion when you meet with this other person and you're trying to resolve a conflict. A lot of times too, conflicts or things go awry because of lack of or miscommunication or changes and people's reactions to those changes. And the best thing that you can do in those moments, again, keep the steady hand on the wheel. Listen, plug in. Sometimes you can't fix it, and you, as a leader, can only sit in the pain or the angst with the person. And sometimes that's the most powerful thing that you can do. They're not always asking you to fix their problem. Sometimes they just want to know that you're there.
They just want to know that you're there. That's how we're plugged in. That reminds me of the sense of, we're always connected to something, to each other. And There's a beautiful verse in the Tao that says, knowing constancy is insight, not knowing constancy leads to disaster. Not knowing constancy leads to disaster, knowing constancy is insight. And when I hear you talk about being plugged in, that creates a fabric of relatedness that can withstand anything that's happening, because we are there for each other, whether things go well or not well. And from that place, we are far less likely to go into reactive patterns, defensiveness, all these things that basically cut off our intelligence. And we're much more likely to be the humans we want to be and to be actually able to fulfill what we need to be doing. So, Carson, we are amazingly getting towards the last bit of this conversation. I will have more conversations during the summit. Uh, what do you want to say, maybe as a practical takeaway, for to somebody who may not be as skilled or proficient or used to appreciation as you are? What would you say to them? Or maybe somebody who's feeling not so great about themselves just at this very moment.
Hilke, thank you again just for the opportunity to be a part of this with you. I appreciate you. First off, remember, it starts with self. And if you're honest with yourself, there are absolutely relationships and experiences that have gotten you to this point. You may not be exactly where you want to be. Trust me, I've been there many, many, many times. And in those moments, being able to draw that line in the sand, understand the things, those unique skills and strengths and superpowers that you bring to the table, the things that you can leverage in order to elevate everyone else around you. That's where you can conjure up strength. There's a reason Superman always went to his fortress of solitude. He needed to go back, regain his strength, go fly up to the sun and soak in the rays. Sometimes you have to do that. Retreat, meditate, get grounded in yourself and what matters most to you, and go back purpose driven, mission focused. But as that goes back out in every day, and sometimes even if it means you need to schedule it to make it intentional, take a proactive approach to thank somebody. I promise you that it will matter a great deal to that person. They'll probably never forget it. I look back and I can think many, many times of the times where somebody sent me public praise. You can nowadays call someone out in social media like LinkedIn and tag them in posts about, something that you learned from them. There's so many ways to do that. It will have a lasting impression. And those are the types of things that will bring them along for the ride. They will want to be a part of your movement and the culture that you are creating when you show that you appreciate what they bring to the table. Sometimes it's not always an obvious thing. It may even be somebody with whom you're having challenges or struggles. But if you really think about it, there is something that they're doing greatly. And if you shine a light on that, it may actually elevate them to doing better in other areas.
I'm hearing what you're saying, Carson, is inviting people into the bigger ride, not the ride of this or that that's happening right now, even though that's important too, but the bigger ride of, no, we're in this together. I appreciate you. I see you. I see you. I see you beyond what you might be thinking or feeling or what's happening right now or the results you're producing. I see you. And that is a very powerful rock foundation to be rooted in. So I'm taking away that appreciation and play can feel kind of trivial. If you just think about it for a second, and the way you've helped us see it today, to me, it's foundational. It's the basis from which, if we don't appreciate each other, what else is there? What else is there?
Think about the things that you need as fuel and try to provide that experience to others.
Think of what you need as fuel and provide that to others. Carson, you said it beautifully. Thank you so much for being with us as our first guest and co-host on the Connected Teamwork Summit. we're going to take a short break before we move on to team defining moment number 2. Actually, number 3, because we're going to skip one before we go back to 2, and that's goal setting. And we've been talking with Carson Heady from Microsoft, number 1 social seller. I appreciate that about you. Besides, I appreciate that about you is that you always bring this amazing energy and appreciation. You are appreciation. So what a better person to speak to this topic than you, Carson, and also being co-host today. So we're going to take a short break and then continue onto our next discussion on a team defining moment. We're going to talk about goal setting. And if you're listening, thank you for listening. I hope you're finding something you find helpful to feel more connected to yourself and others, and think about what you can appreciate about somebody. Thank you, everyone. See you in a bit.